Hi, everyone, and welcome to McAfee Answers. I'm your host, Mike Cedillo. Thank you for joining us. Today, we will be covering virtual private networks, often referred to as VPN. Whether you're shopping online, paying bills, or keeping your browsing information and data hidden from cybercriminals, this session should be beneficial to you. If you have any questions during the webinar, click on the Q&A button at the bottom right hand of the screen and submit it there. We'll do our best to get to those questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, here today to talk about VPN and to highlight the benefits of this feature is the product manager of VPN, Dave. Dave has worked in the VPN space for over 6 years. His focus areas privacy, new features, and anti-censorship. Dave he has a love for VPN, and he is excited to be here to talk through this with us today. Welcome, Dave. I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name's Dave, and I will be providing an introduction to VPN today. So let's jump into it. So the simple truth is, if your device is connected to the internet today, your ISP, internet service provider, can see everything that you do online. So every search that you make, every file you download, every video you watch, everything you do. And so to protect their privacy, more people are starting to use VPN services, mostly to stop these companies from tracking what they do online. And that's what I'm here to present today. I won't be providing a technical breakdown of how VPNs work. We actually have a previous presentation on the dark web that already talks a little bit about the technical value of a VPN, but I will be providing a short introduction to them, what they are, how they work, and why you should be using one. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and talk about our agenda and what we'll be covering. So first, I'm going to walk you all through what a VPN actually is and why using one is so important. And then I'll provide a high-level overview of how a VPN service works. Nothing super complex, pretty straightforward introduction to them. And then I'll also cover some common questions that folks should always ask themselves when considering if a VPN product, or really any privacy or security product, is the right service for them. So that brings us to what is a VPN. So VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And when we talk about a VPN, what we're really talking about are two different things: the VPN client and the actual VPN servers, or the network that the client connects to. A VPN client is an application that can help keep your internet connection private on your device, whether you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi network or your personal network at home. And when we talk about the VPN network or servers, what we're talking about is what you connect to that changes your IP address and keeps your browsing private online. So there are two components, one which covers the encryption and one which covers your IP address changing. So when you combine these two items, they turn all of your searches, images, text, basically what we refer to as your browsing traffic, into a secret code so that it appears as gibberish to unapproved entities, so ISPs, public network admins, hackers, etc. So I like to provide an analogy when we talk about VPN services. Specifically, there are a lot of analogies out there, but specifically, I like to look at using a VPN service like renting a car. So if you drive your car normally and there are cameras on the street and they can track everywhere you go, typically your license plate would be associated with your identity if you're the owner of the car or the license plate. And an IP address functions similarly. Every single IP address is attached to a customer account. So if you have an ISP, they provide your network, you're going to have an IP that's associated with who you are. So the way a VPN helps is that once you connect to a VPN service, not only is it encrypting and keeping everything that you send over the internet private, but it's changing your IP address, making it so that what you browse online can't be tracked to who you are. In that way, it's like using a rental car, except the rental car company that you're renting from isn't keeping records of who took out which car. Since we have no logs on the user that connects to an IP address, we help maintain that privacy when connected to our service. There are some additional subpoints when we use that analogy as well. Like, what if I use a public network? That's kind of like using a bus. If you get on a bus and decide to go somewhere, anyone else can be on that bus as well and track what you do and where you go. And so that's when using a VPN is actually important over a public network as well, because it would prevent someone from being able to track where you're actually going online. So I think one question everyone should ask themselves is, why should I be using a VPN? And I think the simple answer is, if you're someone who's concerned about your browsing traffic, and if you're looking to better secure your digital footprint and privacy online, you'll want to consider using a VPN. A lot of the common reasons folks do use them is to change their IP addresses. So a lot of services will, as mentioned before, a lot of services will detect your IP address, associate it with who you are, and that's one way that your privacy is at least at risk online. So changing that IP address is a fundamental way to keeping you private and secure. Also, blocking online tracking. A lot of advertisers will tie your IP address to what you browse, and then they'll target you with ads based on that IP, and they'll know who you are. So not only the privacy aspect, but preventing folks from being able to target you with very specific advertisements based on what you're doing online. As mentioned in the bus analogy, protecting your data on public networks can prevent unapproved third parties from seeing where you go or what you do. Also, accessing region-restricted content online. A lot of folks travel, and when you're in another country, it might be that social media isn't available, or some of your streaming services aren't available. But not only that, VPN can help bypass those restrictions, but it can also help people keep in touch with their loved ones or families if they live in another country as well, and they don't have access to the same means of communication. Kind of last on that list would be bypassing censorship. So one big issue that we've observed worldwide is that more and more governments have restricted the internet to their citizens. And where VPN becomes very useful is that it can actually bypass some of those censorship and some of those restrictions that exist for folks. So using a VPN can help get past that and provide a more open internet as well. So how do VPNs work? This is probably the most interesting part of this presentation. So let's finally go over how they work. I will say, courtesy of our wonderful designers, this is what a normal network connection looks like. So from your device to the network run by your ISP, to your browsing destination, so that would be the website you wish to visit, or maybe even the app you wish to use or game you wish to play online. So when you aren't using a VPN, that means that everything that you're doing over the internet has the potential to be tracked and logged, either by the provider of your network or the websites that you visit, or even other entities that might be observing your network traffic, especially if you're using a public network. So there are a few more steps that are a bit more difficult to represent without getting too technical on this next slide here. But here we can see a basic overview of what a VPN connection looks like when it's actually connected. A user can enable their VPN client, the application, and then this is when the encryption would normally occur on the device. Every action that is local to your device until it passes through the VPN client is encrypted, and then it's finally sent out over your network, so over your ISP's network or the public network that you're using. The encrypted or unreadable traffic passes over the network until it reaches a VPN server. From there, the IP address is changed to a VPN IP so that it can't be traced back to you as a user, and the browsing traffic that you're browsing online is unencrypted as it reaches the website. The reason it's unencrypted is so that the website can actually understand or read your request. Otherwise, it would be completely unreadable. And then the process is pretty much done in reverse, as it's sent back over your network, back to your device, and then it's unencrypted by your VPN client so that you can read it. And through this process, all the information that's being sent over the internet remains encrypted when it's being sent through your network. It's being kept private through the change in your IP address. And then when it reaches the browsing destination, it's being deciphered and sent back. So some common questions and concerns that everyone should typically be asking themselves when deciding if a VPN service is the right service for them. I have a list here, and I'll do my best to address some of these, but the answers will vary for each unique person, each unique use case. So first question, how do I know if I can trust my VPN provider? And the simple truth is all VPN providers, even McAfee, should absolutely be scrutinized by every single user. A VPN has access to all of your data that passes through its servers. It's important that they have a no logging policy, that they regularly conduct privacy and security audits. And aside from that, it's also worth being very wary of entirely free services. So VPN services, they cost money to maintain the servers. And if the service is entirely free, you'll want to make absolutely sure that they aren't making money off of your browsing data. And for McAfee, we do audits on our VPN infrastructure, and we do have a no logging policy in place for our VPN service. Another question that's super important to ask yourself is, should I use VPN all the time? And I think the general rule of thumb is absolutely. If you already are paying for a VPN service, use it all the time. You wouldn't let a stranger inside your home to watch you do chores around your house. And the same logic applies here. Unless it's interfering with your ability to do something online unrestricted, you should always try to keep your VPN enabled at all times. It's going to just provide a net benefit, net value for your privacy and online security. So this next question, I think, is something that folks often get wrong about VPNs. And that question is, will a VPN keep me completely anonymous online? And the answer is simply no, it won't. It's important not to confuse what being anonymous means with what being private means, or maintaining your privacy. So being completely anonymous means that no one would ever know who you are at all when you engage online. And this is incredibly difficult to achieve. No VPN or even Tor browser would provide that type of anonymity, right? So privacy, on the other hand, is the ability to control which information you disclose, who you disclose it to, and when you want to disclose it. So when you use a VPN, the data leaving your computer, it's encrypted, it's unreadable to your ISP, and your ISP, they can probably tell that you're using a VPN or that you're using encryption, but they'll have no way of knowing what you're actually doing online. So that's the difference between privacy and when we say, can you be completely anonymous online? You can manage the data you send. So it's important to understand the difference there. VPNs provide privacy. And lastly, I think this is important because it's very clear in what we actually protect. So what does and doesn't a VPN protect? It's important to know what you're protecting with a VPN. So VPNs only protect your browsing traffic. That is to say, the data that you're willingly sending over the internet, anything that's stored locally on the device, or information willingly provided to a service will not be protected. So if you allow your web browser to collect information about your device, it will continue to collect that information. So while that information is sent to the web browser servers, it will be encrypted. That's what the VPN would do for you. It won't actually stop them from collecting that information if you've already given your browser permissions. The same thing goes for if you create an account on a website. All the information that you provide that website, they're still going to have that information. They're going to store it on their end. But if you're using VPN while you're sending it, that information will be encrypted and protected. And yeah, that's everything I have on my end today. There's still always a ton to cover about VPNs, but if you're just looking for a high-level overview, hopefully that helps. And I'll hand things back over to Mike.
Great. Dave, thank you very much for sharing some time with us today. And thanks for highlighting the value of VPN and really how easy of a tool it is to use. It allows us to protect our data from cyber criminals and gives us that privacy. By the way, I love your driving the car analogy. That's great. And the equivalent of using public Wi-Fi to riding a bus. That's good. Listen, we have questions that have come in, and I would, if you're okay, I would like to give you an opportunity to answer some of these questions from our customers. The first one, Dave, is, are VPNs legal?
Yeah, are VPNs legal? That's a very tough question to answer. It does depend on where you live. Some places do try to ban VPN usage, or they do try to ban certain parts of VPN technology. Um, in most countries, no, using VPNs are not illegal. But since many countries do have their own laws in place that might restrict how or when, or in very rare cases, if you can even use VPN services, that's not something we can specifically answer for any individual customer. They'd have to look at their own local laws to confirm whether or not they're allowed to use VPNs. But in most countries, VPNs are legal.
Great, great. Thank you. That helps. We went through various benefits of VPN, and we heard how it could protect us and how we could leverage it to secure our information. Are there any downsides to using a VPN?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd necessarily say downsides, but there are some trade-offs to consider when using a VPN service. So, two things that VPNs intentionally do to help keep you private and secure is they'll encrypt your data, which uh, I guess for lack of a better word, can add a little weight to your data, right? And then it'll also have a stop along the way to your browsing destination, so your website or your app or your game server. And that stop is when it'll then give you a brand new IP address, right? So we're essentially adding 2 additional stops minimum to your connection, and that can cause a little bit of a spike in either latency or some speed loss to your browsing experience. Nothing significant, but if you're expecting like very, very fast browsing experience and no impact on that when using a VPN service, then that expectation might be a little lost there. So VPNs can impact speeds, although nothing super drastic. And other than that, yeah, so another possible downside to using VPN services could be content access as well. So many folks will use a VPN to access streaming services, whether it's like Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus, any of those services. And many of them actually try to restrict VPN access because they have geolocation restrictions in place, meaning they can't stream certain content in certain countries. So one way to get around that is using a VPN to change your IP address to that of another country, right? So you can experience content access restrictions when these services try to block VPN IP addresses. So in that case, you might have to disable your VPN temporarily or try reconnecting it to get a new IP if you want to have that like unrestricted experience when accessing that type of content.
Right, makes sense. I guess the takeaway there is convenience versus privacy. I'll take
Yeah,
privacy
exactly.
all day long. So, okay, great. How can I confirm that my VPN is actually working?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of ways to confirm, how or when your VPN service is working. So the first step is obviously you go into your client. All of our apps, whether it's our standalone app or one of our integrated apps, so Total Protection or McAfee Security, you just open the client where VPN is. It's a simple toggle. You turn it on, tap it, click it. Once it's connected, depending on the platform you're using, there will be usually some OS level indicator that the VPN is already connected. So I believe for iOS or Android devices specifically in your status menu bars, there will be a VPN icon. Varies depending on the system you use. But another way to determine it, if you want to go outside of the operating system or if you want to go beyond what the app's telling you, which is always smart to do, is to go to any IP checking service or website online. You can even just Google what is my IP address and run that search. And as long as you get an IP address that's not your normal IP address, that will likely be the VPN IP. So if you search for your IP address while not connected and the result is different than what you get when you are connected to a VPN, that confirms you're connected. You're now using the VPN services IP.
All right, yeah, I've seen that before on my iPhone. That the little VPN indicator on the top left. So that's
Yeah,
good
yeah,
to know.
exactly. And we do host a site that can confirm if you're using one of our IPs specifically. It's Bears My IP, so Bears, not Where's, bearsmyip.com, and that will tell you if you're successfully connected to one of our IP addresses.
All right. All right, Dave. So I know previously you had mentioned that McAfee has VPNs, obviously.
Yep.
A question just came in about that. Which McAfee products include VPN?
Yeah, so actually, we do provide multiple VPN services through McAfee in different types of apps. So it really depends on what you're looking for. We have standalone apps. So that's a service that is just VPN, no other privacy or security feature built into the client. And for that, we have TunnelBear and SafeConnect. And then our integrated apps, which are almost like little suites of privacy and security features. VPN is just one of a bunch of other features that we support within those clients. We have Total Protection and LiveSafe. Those both have VPN access for them. And then we also have our McAfee mobile security app that you can download on your device and on your iOS and Android device. And for any of those applications, VPN's disabled by default. We never want to change your network without your permission. But if you already have a either Total Protection subscription or a LiveSafe subscription, or if you've just purchased mobile security on its own, you can simply open those apps on the home screens. There will be a VPN option, and you'll be able to enable VPN directly from within the app. Super simple. It's just a simple toggle that you click on or you tap, and you'll get connected.
Great, great. Dave, thank you very much for sharing some time with us today. We are at time today, so we'll wrap up with this episode of McAfee Answers. But one thing I wanted to point out to the viewers today, if you found this webinar beneficial, you can access the content and additional content at service.macafee.com/answers. So I encourage you guys to not only share this episode, but also go to our landing page where you can get future episodes and share those with your friends and family, with neighbors, also help keep them safe. Thanks again, Dave. Thanks for everyone that joined us today online. We hope to see you next time, and stay safe online.